Daniel Finch never believed in magic. A practical man, he spent his days fixing old clocks in a quiet, modern town where the loudest sound was the whistle of the bakery down the street. His life was routine, until the morning the sky cracked open. It began with a storm unlike any Daniel had ever seen. The rain shimmered like liquid glass, and thunder sang in strange, melodic chords. As he hurried home clutching his umbrella, a sudden flash of light split the clouds. The ground vanished beneath his feet. When Daniel woke, he lay on soft, golden grass under two suns. The air smelled of honey and pine. Far away, mountains floated like islands in the sky, their waterfalls tumbling into clouds instead of rivers. Strange birds with feathered tails like ribbons sang songs that made his chest ache with wonder. "Where am I?" Daniel whispered. A gentle voice answered from nearby. "You've crossed the veil, traveler." He turned to see a small, robed figure, a being no taller than his waist, with long ears tipped in silver and eyes glowing like lantern light. They introduced themselves as Lyra, a guide of the path between worlds. "You've been chosen," Lyra said simply. "The kingdom of Aureliath called for a champion, and you answered, though perhaps unknowingly." Daniel shook his head. "Champion? You must have the wrong person. I fix clocks, that's all." But Lyra only smiled knowingly. "Even clocks hold magic. They stitch moments together. You, too, will stitch this world's fate." Before Daniel could protest, a warm breeze carried the sound of distant music, bells, drums, and joyous laughter. On the horizon stood a vast city of crystal towers and vine-draped arches, shimmering like starlight even under twin suns. "That," Lyra said, pointing, "is Aureliath's heart. The queen herself awaits you." Daniel felt a strange pull in his chest, as though invisible threads guided his steps toward the city. Something told him this was no dream. As they walked, Lyra explained that long ago, the realm thrived under harmony between mortals and magical beings. But now, a great imbalance threatened to tear the land apart, not through war, but through forgetting. Memories of wonder, kindness, and courage were fading. Without them, Aureliath's magic would vanish. "The queen believes," Lyra said, glancing up at Daniel, "that only a soul from another world can remind us who we truly are." Daniel looked out over the breathtaking landscape, still feeling entirely ordinary yet impossibly tied to this place. Perhaps it wasn't strength or skill Aureliath needed. Perhaps it was something as simple as a heart willing to believe again. And thus began the journey of a clockmaker who would one day be sung of as the wanderer from another world. Daniel and Lyra traveled for hours across glowing meadows where flowers sang when brushed by the wind. Rivers flowed upward into floating lakes, and trees whispered old stories in a language Daniel almost understood. At last, they reached a bridge carved from crystal vines that shimmered as though alive. Beyond it, the city of Aureliath rose like a dream made solid. Towers of glass and pearl twisted skyward, connected by bridges that glowed with soft, amber light. The streets were paved with stone that hummed beneath Daniel's boots, and everywhere, magical lanterns floated, glowing like captured dawn. As they entered, creatures of every kind passed by, winged folk with feathers that shimmered like starlight, small earthbound beings of moss and stone, and tall, graceful elves with eyes like swirling galaxies. Yet no one seemed alarmed by Daniel's strange clothing or dazed expression. Many even bowed slightly as he passed. "Why are they looking at me like that?" Daniel whispered. Lyra smiled knowingly. "Because they know the old song, when the land forgets its wonder, a stranger shall arrive, carrying a key unseen, to awaken the heart of Aureliath." Daniel chuckled nervously. "I don't have any keys." "Not a metal one," Lyra said softly. "But you'll see." They entered the palace, a marvel of silver arches and stained glass halls that cast shimmering rainbows over marble floors. At its center, in a throne carved from a single moonstone, sat Queen Serenia of Aureliath. Her hair flowed like liquid gold, and her gown was woven from threads of light. Daniel bowed awkwardly. Hello, Your Majesty. I think there's been a mistake. I'm no hero. The Queen's voice was warm as sunlight on water. There is no mistake. The winds between worlds chose you, Daniel Finch. You do not need sword or sorcery, you need only a heart willing to mend what is broken. Before Daniel could reply, a commotion echoed through the hall. A small creature burst in, a fox-sized animal with dragonfly wings and a single spiraled horn. It fluttered nervously, squeaking in a melodic chirp. "This is Pyrrole," said Serenia. "A spirit of the Everwild Glade. They bring troubling news. The Glade's heartstone, which keeps its magic alive, is fading. Without it, the creatures there will vanish, and the forgetting will spread." Daniel's stomach twisted. "And you think I can help?" The Queen nodded. "Not alone. You will have companions, Lyra, of course, and Pyrrole will guide you. There is also one more who waits for you beyond these walls, a scholar of the old songs. Together, you must journey to the Everwild Glade and restore its memory." Daniel glanced at Lyra and Pyrrole, who chirped encouragingly. His old life felt 1,000 worlds away, yet something inside whispered that this was where he needed to be. Queen Serenia stood and placed a slender hand over his heart. A soft light glowed beneath her palm. "Every hero begins as a wanderer," she said. "And every legend begins with a single step." That night, as twin moons rose over Aureliath's living towers, Daniel prepared for his first true adventure, one that would carry him into enchanted forests, ancient songs, and friendships strong enough to weave a broken world whole again. Morning arrived soft and golden, spilling across Aureliath's crystalline streets. Daniel hardly slept, his mind swirling with doubts and quiet wonder. Yet when he stepped out of the guest chamber, the city itself seemed to greet him, the bridges glowing brighter, lanterns bobbing cheerfully, and a faint melody drifting through the towers as if sung by the wind. Lyra trotted beside him. The Queen said the scholar waits at the Hall of Echoed Songs. It's not far. They passed bustling markets where floating stalls sold glowing fruit, whispering scrolls, and charms that danced like fireflies. Music followed them everywhere, harp strings played by invisible hands, humming vines wound around arches, and birds that sang perfect harmonies. The Hall of Echoed Songs stood at the city's edge, carved into a cliff that overlooked a waterfall plunging into mist far below. When Daniel entered, his breath caught. The entire chamber was made of polished crystal, and every sound, a footstep, a whisper, resonated like a chorus of bells. At the center sat a young woman on a low dais surrounded by floating parchment. She had long hair the color of starlight and wore a cloak embroidered with ancient runes. She was humming softly to a tiny wren perched on her hand, and the song painted glowing symbols in the air. She looked up as Daniel approached and smiled warmly. "Ah, the Wanderer. I am Selene, scholar of the old songs." She bowed slightly. "I've been expecting you." Daniel blinked. "You have?" Selene chuckled like a chime. "The songs always know. They spoke of a man who crossed the veil and would weave broken hearts whole again. And they told me to join you." Pyrrole chirped excitedly, fluttering to Selene's shoulder. Lyra nodded approvingly. Selene gestured to the floating parchments. "I've studied the heartstone of the Everwild Glade. It doesn't simply power magic, it holds every memory of the forest and its creatures. But something has silenced its song. To restore it, we must find the melody of dawn hidden deep within the glade." Daniel scratched his neck. "I'm not much of a singer." Selene laughed gently. "You don't need to be. Sometimes, listening is the greater magic." Later that day, the four companions left Aureliath. Beyond the city gates, rolling meadows gave way to enchanted woodlands where sunlight shimmered like gold dust. The forest whispered secrets as they walked, trees bent slightly toward Daniel as if recognizing him. That evening, they camped near a silver brook. Selene taught them old songs by firelight, melodies that made the stars flicker brighter. Pyrrole curled beside Daniel, warm as a lantern, while Lyra quietly carved runes into a staff. For the first time since arriving, Daniel felt a bond forming, a thread weaving between them that spoke of trust, courage, and belonging. Perhaps he was no swordsman or sorcerer, but as Selene said, sometimes the greatest magic began simply, by listening. As the twin moons climbed high, the forest echoed with their music, a promise that even in a forgotten world, hope could still sing. At dawn, the group reached the edges of the Everwild glade. Unlike the gentle forests they had passed through before, this place pulsed with untamed magic. Trees shimmered in hues of emerald and violet, their leaves singing in harmony with the wind. Vines hung like curtains of living light, and glowing fireflies traced ancient runes in the air. But as they stepped closer, the song of the glade faltered. Flowers wilted mid-bloom, streams ran sluggishly, and the vibrant colors faded to muted grays. The forest itself seemed to sigh, exhausted and afraid. Selene placed a hand on the nearest tree and closed her eyes. "The heartstone sleeps," she whispered. "Memories are slipping away. If it fades completely, the glade will become nothing but silence." Lyra nodded gravely. "We must pass the trials of memory to reach it. Each trial will test who we are, not with battles, but with choices." Daniel felt a chill despite the warm, glowing air. "I'm not exactly used to magical tests." Selene offered an encouraging smile. "Then trust your heart. The glade knows truth when it sees it." The first trial appeared as they crossed a bridge of woven roots. A mist rolled in, and suddenly Daniel was no longer in Aureliath but back home in his old workshop. Broken clocks and watches surrounded him. A younger version of himself sat at the workbench, head in hands. A voice echoed softly, "Would you leave behind who you were, to become who you're meant to be?" Daniel hesitated. The workshop had been his life, safe, familiar. Yet, thinking of Aureliath's fading light, of Lyra, Pyrrole, and Selene trusting him, he spoke firmly. "Yes. I'll step forward." The mist dissolved, revealing the bridge whole and glowing brighter beneath his feet. The second trial appeared in a glade filled with mirrored pools. One by one, his companions faced reflections of their greatest doubts. Lyra, standing alone as bridges between worlds crumbled behind her. She whispered, "I'll still guide the lost, even if no paths remain." The vision faded. Pyrrole, fluttering weakly as its light dimmed. It chirped softly, "Even a small spark can light the dark," and the glow returned. Selene, surrounded by torn song scrolls. She sang a single note of hope, and the scrolls reformed in golden light. Together, they passed the second trial. The final trial awaited at a massive stone arch draped in glowing moss. A voice, ancient and gentle, filled the air. "To awaken the Heartstone, you must offer a memory dearer than gold." Daniel searched his heart. He thought of his quiet home, of fixing clocks while rain pattered softly on the windows, of afternoons drinking tea with his elderly neighbor. It was the life he loved, simple, safe. He knelt and whispered, "I'll give up the comfort of that life if it means bringing magic and memories back to this world." A warm light enveloped him. The arch blossomed into vines and flowers, opening the path to a clearing where the Heartstone pulsed faintly, like an ember waiting for breath. Selene's voice trembled with awe. "We've reached it, but to restore its song, we'll need more than courage. We must find the melody of dawn itself." As night fell and stars draped themselves over the glade, Daniel felt something stirring deep inside him, a quiet hum, like a song he had always known but never sung. Would you like me to continue with Part 5, where Daniel and his companions discover the melody of dawn and face the final challenge to restore the glade? The Heartstone rested upon a pedestal of living wood, its glow dim but steady, as though clinging to life. Gentle vines curled protectively around it, trembling faintly in the night breeze. Celine knelt beside the stone, her fingers tracing ancient runes. "The Heartstone's magic is a song," she murmured. "But its melody is broken. To mend it, we must find the first song ever sung in this forest, the melody of dawn." Lyra's lantern-bright eyes flickered with determination. "Old tales say the melody hides where starlight meets morning dew. Few have found it. Fewer have returned unchanged." Daniel swallowed nervously. "I'm not much of a singer, or a hero. But if this world believes in me, I can't turn back now." They ventured deeper into the glade, where trees grew taller than castles and streams glimmered with golden fish. Pyrrole darted ahead, its tiny horn glowing as it followed an invisible trail. Fireflies gathered around them like guiding stars, leading to a secluded glen untouched by fading magic. In the center stood an enormous willow tree with silver bark and leaves that shimmered like sunrise. Beneath its roots lay a crystal-clear spring that reflected not just their faces, but visions of joy long past, children laughing, friendships formed, promises made beneath moonlight. Celine's breath caught. This is it. The Dawn Spring Tree. Its song is the memory of every bond this land has ever known. As they approached, a soft humming filled the glen. The willow's branches swayed though no wind blew. The melody was faint, fragile, like a lullaby sung by a sleeping world. Pyrrole fluttered closer, chirping in harmony, its little voice weaving into the tune. Lyra raised her staff, glowing softly as she added a gentle hum of her own. Celine began to sing words older than time itself, her voice like silver rain. Daniel hesitated, unsure how to contribute. But as he placed a hand on the willow's bark, a warmth surged through him. Images flashed in his mind, his old home, every clock he had mended, every small kindness he had witnessed. It struck him suddenly, he, too, carried memories worth singing for. He closed his eyes and hummed, a simple melody from his childhood. At first, it sounded out of place, foreign to this enchanted forest. Yet the willow's glow brightened, branches lowering as if listening. The song from another world blended seamlessly with Aureliath's ancient tune, completing it. The ground trembled gently. Light spiraled upward through the willow's trunk, flowing into the night sky like a ribbon of dawn. The melody of dawn burst into full harmony, surrounding them with warmth and color. Celine gasped softly. "We've done it, the melody is whole again." With the song renewed, they rushed back to the Heartstone. As they sang together once more, the stone's glow swelled brighter and brighter until it illuminated the entire glade. Flowers unfurled in vibrant colors, streams danced with sparkling water, and every creature of the forest emerged, chirping and singing in joy. The Heartstone thrummed like a living heartbeat, resonating with the melody they restored. The forgetting had been lifted. Pyrrole twirled through the air, chirping gleefully. Lyra rested a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You've done more than heal a stone. You've awakened hope." Celine nodded, tears glimmering in her starlit eyes. Legends will speak of this day, the wanderer who sang with two worlds in his heart. As dawn broke and sunlight painted the glade in golden hues, Daniel looked toward the horizon. He no longer felt like a stranger. He felt part of a legend still unfolding. The journey back to Aureliath was unlike the one they began. The once muted forests now shimmered with life. Birds sang melodies long forgotten, glowing vines bloomed along paths, and even the sky above felt warmer, brighter. Daniel felt the change not only in the land but in himself. When they arrived at the crystal gates of the city, bells chimed from every tower. Crowds gathered along silver bridges, cheering as Pyrrole twirled through the air and Lyra lifted her staff high. Celine sang softly, and the whole city echoed with her song, a melody of hope reborn. Queen Serena awaited them in the moonstone throne room, her golden hair glowing like morning light. As Daniel approached, the queen rose, a serene smile gracing her lips. You have done what even Aureliath's greatest heroes could not, she said, her voice carrying the warmth of sunlight on calm water. You brought back not only the Heartstone's song but reminded us all that true magic lies in bonds of trust and courage. She held out a crystal pendant shaped like a rising sun. From this day forth, you shall be known as Aureliath's light-bearer, the wanderer who mended a fading world. Daniel accepted the pendant with trembling hands. Around him, cheers echoed like thunder softened by joy. Yet in his heart, a question weighed heavily, one Serenia seemed to sense. She gestured, and the crowd quieted. You came here from another realm, she continued gently. The veil between worlds still stands open. You may return to the life you knew, or remain in Aureliath and walk its ever-unfolding paths. Daniel's thoughts swirled. He remembered his quiet home, the ticking of clocks, and evenings where nothing magical ever happened. Safe. Familiar. Then he looked at Lyra, whose guiding lantern now glowed brighter than ever. At Pyrrole, who sang joyously as tiny sparks danced from its horn. At Selene, who stood beside him with starlight in her eyes, her song resonating with something deep inside him. He realized he had found more than adventure here. He had found friendship, purpose, and a world that had whispered for him long before he arrived. Daniel stepped forward, voice steady. I'll stay, if Aureliath will have me. The Queen's smile widened, radiant as dawn. Then welcome home, light-bearer. The threads of two worlds now weave as one. That evening, under the glow of twin moons and a sky painted with floating lanterns, Aureliath celebrated like never before. Music danced through streets of crystal, stories of the wanderer spread like fireflies in the night, and laughter echoed across bridges. Daniel stood atop a balcony with his companions. Selene leaned against the railing, humming softly, Lyra's lantern shone like a star, Pyrrole zipped around, leaving trails of glittering light. You know, Daniel said with a smile, I used to think fixing clocks was the only way I could mend anything. Now, I think I've been fixing more than gears this whole time. Selene's voice was soft but sure. Every tick of a clock is a heartbeat. You've simply found the world where your heart belongs. As dawn crept over the horizon, Daniel Finch, once an ordinary man from another world, looked out over a kingdom he had helped save. He wasn't just a wanderer anymore. He was part of Aureliath's legend, a living thread in its endless tapestry of wonder. And though the songs of his deeds had only just begun, one truth was already clear. The magic of two worlds now shared the same dawn.